Hello, everyone. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, where you are from, joining us from. Thank you very much for joining. My name is Ajay Pinjani, and this is Global Schools Forum Community of Practice on Climate Action. Really wonderful to see you all. Maybe a few more would be trickling in as well. It'll be lovely to see your cameras as well and you as well. So it'll be really great if that is possible. But if it is not possible for you, that's completely fine. I think it just energizes us, excites us, and loves us to know where you're joining from as well. So thank you. Thank you for switching on those as well. Lovely to see you all. Great. So this is the sixth gathering. We've been part of five incredible gatherings so far. And the community of practice really started with the need on climate action in education, voiced by many of you and many other members. Before I talk about that as well, I think as a Global Schools Forum, we believe in supporting non-state education organizations across low and middle income countries to innovate, deepen impact, and achieve scale, which you're all already doing. So, how can we strengthen it as a community? And we have four major pillars we are working towards. One is the community, which is the essence. How can we build the knowledge base, the fundings which are possible to make the work happen, and partnerships, which are key to make the work beautiful as well. We have grown together to now 219 organizations with all of your support. So that's really incredible across 71 countries. And wanted to talk about what we've done briefly in these five sessions, the kind of work we've done, and then we'd love to know who's in the room. And then we can dive into the workshop. Today is a session which we did not put it as something which we wanted to just share another story or a highlight, but we wanted to really make it participative and understand what is your context, what has the past learnings meant for you. So it really depends on how you want to shape this workshop. We've kept a few things there, but we would love an active engagement as well. And this idea really came up when I was doing a few one-on-one calls, especially with Shrutika. Thank you, Shrutika. And she had shared a bit about, what does it mean for our context? How can we actually put into place the learnings within our own context so that we can take it ahead? So, what have we learned so far? It's really interesting around, we've had peace, Samadhi, we've learned voices from Uganda, Zambia, Niger, Botswana, India, Pakistan, uh, and across through UNESCO as well. So, if I had to summarize briefly, we've written a blog as well, shared takeaways separately as well, and happy to share more takeaways if you've not received earlier ones. But when we entered into the peace world of Uganda and Zambia, we talked about whole school resilience, solar rainwater, many things about how about the girls' leadership and what is important around that in climate action. In Samadhi, in Niger Delta, we talked about the 25-hectare mangrove park as a living classroom. What does it mean to bring that indigenous knowledge, which is already there within the communities, connect it with science and bring it back so that we can address our climate challenges which we are experiencing today? On the policy and curriculum side, we heard from Link Education, their incredible work in Malawi and Ethiopia, and how they embed in government schools improvement plans and how they strengthen resilience and budget and prioritize that element. So, very different from peace as well and smarty as well. But we heard more on policy and curriculum from UNESCO as well, on greening education partnership and green school quality standard. That is eligible and applicable for everyone. So if you would like to connect with any of these organizations at any point in time, they are more than welcome to coordinate with you as well. And then when we thought about what else we've heard, there was a lot on people, voice, and culture as well. With Climate Class Connection, Noman unfortunately is unable to attend today because somebody has transitioned in his family early in the morning. So he messaged his excuse. But he's really worked on Baithaks, and Baithak is an Urdu word which is concept gathering. So he's worked on teachers' parliaments and gatherings, on girls leading dialogue with male village elders. And that is transformational because, in several contexts across the globe, which you may be familiar with, the dynamics where the girl inclusive participation is really limited. And then talking about climate and girl participation led by them is again in itself revolutionary. And then Earth Warriors, Tabeen is with us today as well, and Shweta and Tressa have been along, and they've talked a lot about climate literacy from the very early age. And I've seen that many organizations, even after the COP, has connected with Earth Warriors and started joining and using their curriculum as well. So, what does it mean to have a curriculum which is earth friendly, which is nurturing that ability to connect with nature? So we've always had these two frameworks, the surviving and thriving framework. The surviving framework links to what Link Education is doing, and the thriving framework links to what Earth Warriors or Climate Class of Action or Peace or many of you would be leading on. So that's the summary of it. But we don't want to enter into a seventh organization today. What we've been hearing is these are rich learnings. How do you apply them to your own context? So the first question comes is, what is our context? How is it unique? How is it similar to others? And these are some of the questions we were asking ourselves. Where is the leverage point within my own context? What is possible at a school level versus at scale? How do I move from being inspired by many other organizations and the work they do to what I can do? So it's really a space for all of you today. And to actually actuate this kind of space, we would love to know who is here, who's sharing this space right now. Many of you registered, some of you could make it, some of you couldn't make it. But right now, we are the people who are in this room, and we will keep the recording of the session as well, and we'll take the takeaways as well. But it'd be lovely to just put it out there. Maybe share your country, your context, and the context could be if you think it's a refugee context, what is the most um, dominant element which guides your context. So share a bit about your context, your organization, your role, and what is your current weather right now. So how are you feeling right now before we talk about the climate you work in as well. So I'll stop sharing. And if you could just be a smaller group, we can voice out some of these questions to responses. You don't have to put in a particular order. I can begin briefly that my role within GSF is of a learning manager. Global Schools Forum is based in London, but everywhere because you all are based in everywhere. My current climate is pretty raining outside, so it's really beautiful. And yeah, I thrive on your work. And so whatever you do really encourages me to take it along. Yeah. I can pass it to somebody, or somebody can be brave enough to volunteer and then pass it on to somebody else.
I can go next. Hi, everyone. My name is Marcy Karumba. I'm the Community Senior Associate at GSF. So it's basically supports the community in terms of engagement as well as community growth. Here it's a bit chilly. I'm not seated next to a window, so we're not show you, but it's quite chilly in Kenya right now for the next 2 months or so. I'm based in Nairobi in Kenya. So maybe I can pass it to Joanna for continuity.
Hi, thank you very much. I'm Jo. I work with Pestalozzi International as Director of Education. And we have projects in Nepal, India, and Zambia. And I think the term director is a bit misleading. I'm much more like a facilitator. So I'm supporting the projects and the staff on the ground in any way I can in the delivery of a Future Leaders program based on Pestalozzi holistic education principles. And I live in the UK. I work from home. I'm based on the west coast of Wales. We did have a glorious week last week, but we've gone back to our usual grey, miserly rain. So I'm feeling a bit disappointed about that. Yeah, thank you.
Joe, maybe you want to just throw the tagline to somebody else. Call out.
Nisha?
Hello. Hi, I'm Nisha Ligon. I'm the co-founder of Ubongo. We create edutainment for kids in Africa. So educational cartoons, radio, TV programs, reaching over 40 million kids. And I'm also a children's book author. I'm now sitting on the board of Ubongo. So part-time there. They're still thinking a lot about climate and environmental education. My background's in ecology, so it's something very important to me that I bring together with the edutainment work we do. But I also, within my writing, have been writing climate fiction for children, kind of grounded more in global majority countries and asking a lot of these questions about how do we talk to kids about these issues, who, when they're the ones most affected and the least culpable for what is happening, right? So what is the messaging when you're talking to a child who's dealing with the effects of climate change, but not at all, someone who is causing it? So that's something I think a lot about. So I'm very excited to be here and learn from all of you. I normally live in Uganda, but I'm actually in Nairobi at the moment. So Mercy, I'm feeling the cold with you. It's beautiful where I am, surrounded by trees, but very chilly and a bit rainy. And I will pass it on to Nsubuga. Nsubuga. You're going to have to correct me.
Yes, you are right. My name is Nsubuga. So thank you. Hi, everyone. As she said, my name is Nsubuga Peter. I work with I'm the founder of Hope for Youth Uganda, which is an organization that runs a primary school for vulnerable as children in the communities of Mukono district. The weather is sunny and very beautiful, as everyone said. It's rainy season right now, but as you know, it changes every time. It can rain and immediately sunshine comes up. So it's now sunshiny. Thank you, and good to see everyone.
Thank you, Mr. Duga. Would you like to nominate somebody?
Oh, can I go to Tabin?
Yeah. Hi, everyone. I'm Tabeen. I work as a communications manager at Earth Warriors Global. Our work mostly is about climate education, and it's a youth-focused initiative. We work to make climate education a concept that is available for kids at least between the age of 13 and 11. So it really focuses on empowering children, empowering educators in schools and communities, and climate action is a very big part of what we do. In my capacity, I organize webinars and campaigns and collaborative learning spaces for organizations to come together so we can have a conversation about how we can make climate education accessible, especially because in the world that we are living in right now, children are, of course, very disproportionately getting affected by climate change and have not contributed to it, as Nisha mentioned. But at the same time, there are in our world, there are spaces that are also getting affected much more than, for example, the developing countries in India or in Africa that are getting much more affected by climate change and disproportionately affected by climate change. But the people there, or the students there, or the teachers there do not have the resources to really allow themselves to understand climate change as a concept. And that's where our work comes in. And I mentioned, so I live in India. I'm from Kashmir, so we are just phasing out of spring and coming on to summer. So the weather here is quite pleasant. It's actually the weather you always want to have. There's no AC, no fans, and not too warm, not too cold. So yeah, I would like to nominate Wahab to go next.
Okay, thank you very much for this opportunity. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you are. Yeah, I'm from Ghana, and I I work with African Dyslexia Organization as a volunteer, and my work with them is to increase awareness of dyslexia in schools in the northern sector of the country, where I base, and I visit schools to engage teachers to be aware of dyslexia, children with learning disabilities, and to see how best they can accommodate them to also be at the same level with their peers. And I also engage the mass through social media and other platforms to increase the awareness of dyslexia among educators and then the public, general public. And over here in the northern sector of the country, it's a bit hot, though the rains have started coming, but the weather is still hot over here. And we still have a lot of challenges regarding to the weather because of the heat. And when you go to the school, children tend to be feeling warm. Well, most schools are not in, they don't have lights to have fans in it. And currently I'm in one school to engage the teachers, but because of the meeting, I have to stop and then attend the meeting. So you can see that over here, you see that the sun is very sunny in the environment, and which is very hot. So this is what I can say about myself, and then I'm happy to be part of this community of practice. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Wahab. We have many others remaining. So, Shrutika?
Yes, I can share. Hi, everybody. Happy to be here with all of you. I work with Simple Education Foundation and I'm part of the leadership team leading certain set of programs. So we are based in 3 different regions of northern India, and it's one of them is urban, one of them is rural, one of them is a combination of both. And our model is such that we work with small number of schools in partnership in a lot of depth. And what we learn from there is what we scale through the government partnerships, through the government institutions. And yeah, the context is that we have been seeing the effects of climate change in very different ways and how it's showing up in urban in terms of, floods, and how it's showing up in rural areas in terms of landslides, in terms of how it's affecting the agriculture, which is like a very regular activity for the families there. And the school closures as well. In rural, we've been seeing a lot of that for like 2 months, the schools are not really able to open with a consistency because of rains, and it's dangerous for children to be in those buildings and even to like walk to their schools. And yeah, one thing that has been through these COP spaces, what I've heard from all of you, one thing that's becoming visible for us is that how we would like to take like a more interconnected approach to climate education, where children are able to approach it from a space of abundance as well, and not just urgency. That, okay, how do we at the first space connect better with what's around us and build that compassion and empathy with it, and then move ahead from there. Yeah, so excited for today to learn more from each one of you and just deep dive into what we can take back as an organization. It's new for us, and we're going to start with the model schools that we have. So that's where we'll start our intervention for this. And yeah, the weather, it rained for a few hours, around like till 30 minutes ago it was raining, and now the sun is out. So it's lesser hot as compared to how it has been in the last few weeks. Thank you. I'll pass it on to Sujina. Would you like to go next?
Thank you. Thank you, Shrita. So, hi everyone. I am Sujina Saki from Nepal. I'm a Global Program Officer at UWS, United.
So, Gina, I think we've lost
schools,
your
and I'm
voice.
based in Nepal.
Okay, bye.
Improve the access to the quality education for children. Okay, you can hear me?
Now we
I
can.
will try with my video off. I think I'm struggling with the network. So yeah, hi everyone. Sujina here. I'm a global program officer with UWS, United World Schools, and I'm based in Nepal. So this organization is working to improve access to the quality education for children in some of the world's most remote and marginalized communities. We currently work across Nepal, Cambodia, Madagascar, and Myanmar. We partner closely with communities and governments to build inclusive and sustainable education systems. So, in this context, where we operate, we are increasingly seeing the impacts of climate change, whether it is floods, landslide, extreme heat. So these are directly, we know that it's directly affecting children's ability, as we all, and many of you have also shared here, and it has also affect the access and the continuity of the education. So schools and communities are becoming more vulnerable, and these challenges are shaping how we think about the education delivery. So as an organization, we are now exploring how we can better integrate the climate resilience and environmental awareness into our programs, ensuring that we support not only children but also respond to the various realities that they are facing due to this climatic change. I'm very pleased to be here today. Looking forward to share and learn together during this session.
Thank you so much, Sujina. I think the voice dropped at the end, but I think we
About
got the
the weather,
yeah.
it's pretty sunny whole day, but it rains.
Okay. Thank you. We have Samantha. Samantha, would you like to go next?
Sure. Sorry for being a bit late joining. Lovely to see some new faces. So I've been part of the community of practice for a while. And yeah, so it's nice to see some new faces, new organizations joining. So I'm the executive director for Link, or co-executive director for Link Education International, based in Edinburgh in Scotland. But a bit like Joanna, very much supports partners that we work with in Malawi, Uganda, Ethiopia, and Rwanda and Zambia as well. And Link is a kind of support system strengthening. So there's lots of work around so leadership training, teacher training, foundational numeracy, social emotional learning, with a focus on marginalized groups. So girls, children with disabilities, got a big project funded by Scottish Government around inclusive education and climate. So kind of cross-cutting all of that is looking at ensuring schools are climate resilient and building their resilience against climate events. And we've had funding from Scottish Government to pilot projects across Malawi in about 150-ish schools. And the way Link works is to not set up any parallel systems or new structures, because we understand the challenges around sustainability and scalability of those. So it's much rather looking at what the government expects the schools to already do, and then thinking about how, in this instance, climate resilience can be embedded into that process, so that it's not something new that schools have to take on board, as well as everything else that they have to do as well. So the climate resilience bit has been piloted through the school improvement plans that I'm sure you're all familiar with, that schools have to do every year. So it's enabling this, or teaching or supporting head teachers and teachers to think about what they need to do to make their school climate resilient against storms, floods. Those are the main things that we're dealing with in Malawi, and extreme heat. How can they make the schools more resilient with what they have? So looking at their school improvement grants that they receive, what little bits can they take from that to think about planting trees, for example? How can they bring the community on board? Who do they need to speak to within the district government to help them, maybe with tree seedlings or other kind of resources, maybe some training as well? And across all of that, ensuring that any of the hazard mapping processes or the disaster risk management clubs or the emergency drills, making sure that all of that thinks about girls and thinks about children with disabilities and teachers with disabilities as well, and what their role is and how to ensure that they're taken care of as well during events. And the weather is cloudy because we're in Scotland and that's what it is.
Thank you, Sam, and thank you for being there through and throughout. It's been really, really supportive. We have Kasoge and Nanteza. If anyone would like to go first in the second. Kasoge? And please, if I'm pronouncing the name incorrectly, please correct. Kasoge, I can see you unmute. I think Nanteza is there. So, Nanteza, would you like to go?
Hello everyone, nice to be here. My name is Nateza from Hope for Youth Uganda. I work with Hope for Youth Uganda on so many programs. One of it is the Hope for Youth Climate Change, and mostly we deal with the youth. And these youth, mostly it's about education. We go to the different schools and we teach them about climate resilience. Sometimes we provide some seedlings, the trees, most especially the indigenous trees, the mango trees, the jackfruit trees, and most of these trees are able to sustain themselves the unpredictable seasons that are changing, because most of the time we see that in the morning it was shining, but now it's a bit cloudy. But in the next few minutes, you might see that it's raining, or it goes back to the same weather that it was in the morning, that is sunshine. So we try to make them ambassadors to their communities and go back to their homes and encourage their parents to plant more trees, to plant more vegetables. So that's what we do, and also other programs. Yeah, thank you. And right now it's cloudy. Thank you.
That's amazing, Nanteza. Thank you so much. The last, not the least, Kasoga. Jacqueline, are you with us? I can see you're unmute. Great. We'll be shortly in breakout room, so maybe Kasoga, you want to check your mic till that time, and then it'll be great to know you as well. Yeah. Thank you so much. I think it's interesting to just even draw a canvas of where we all are, from Ghana to Uganda to Kenya to UK to Scotland, London, other Wales, India. It's in Nepal. Just exciting to even draw that canvas. So of course, climate is not. It's neutral to everyone. It will be with everyone. Will impact everyone. I think the question for us is, in the next hour, what can we learn from each other, which can be applicable for our own context? And that's the question I don't have an exact answer to. But what I'm hoping is that the kind of framework we are trying to use will give us some insight to share much more detail than the introductory context you've already shared. So I'll put that down, and yeah, let's begin and let's see what comes out, what surfaces. So what we intend to do, and
I was just going to say something small.
yes, please go for it.
Kasoga Jacqueline belongs also to Hope for Youth, and I'm glad that both those two colleagues of mine are online now. And in that case, I am begging to leave because my two colleagues are representing us, please.
No worries, Mr. Bunga. I think thank you so much. So thank you for letting me know that they're from Hope for Uganda. So
Hope for Youth. Yes,
perfect.
please.
I'll put the groups correctly. Thank you.
All right. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much. Great. I will change a bit of a format, but I think overall, what we want to do is do a bit of a diagnosis, see the kind of framework, the lens framework we've brought in here. We won't go into pairs, but we may go in directly into groups. We want to surface what patterns emerge across different organizations. And then we want to think about what kind of ask we have, what kind of challenge we have, but majorly apply that framework. And what is that framework? In simplistic term, we thought about five different aspects. One is, where are you positioned right now? What kind of organization you have, and thereby what kind of control or influence do you have? And the second one is, thereby, where can you begin, or what you're already doing, but where's your entry point in your particular context, which others can learn from, or what you've already done. So, for example, Earth Warriors has thought to expand their curriculum, but why have they done so? I think that would be an interesting question to ask. And what does the next journey look like? Is it partnering with others? Is it optimizing others' benefit? And at what level are we really engaging with? Is it to address the surface issues? Is it to create some economic, social, or political dimensions which are beneath that? Because we know climate has connections with girl education, with inclusiveness, with any other element we can take, with indigenous community knowledge. And then what is our level of intervention? It could be an aspiration, which could be different, but where are you working at the structure level, mindset level, process level, or behavior level? And what kind of opportunities do you see? This is a mouthful. I have developed a worksheet as well, which, of course, we are not hoping that we will end today. The intention is that we have enough questions to jog down our memory, and we are not doing it in isolation. We are helping each other reflect on these questions. So when you go into your breakout rooms, the ignore this pairs and groups, but we'll directly enter into groups. But take time to think about what are each area's strength, what are the challenges, and what is that opportunity you want to explore. And the fourth question, what is emerging? So if I were to be in that group and I look into that worksheet, I'll come to you, Wahab, just in a second. If you all have access to this worksheet, just want to make sure there's an editable version as well. So think about these five lenses. We don't have to respond to it right now. And if we in our groups are able to even think about what is our strength, a challenge, and an opportunity, and then we can come back into the wider group to see where do we share our starting points, where do we share our challenges. And that's the way we can go ahead into as well. Wahab?
Okay, thank you very much. And please, I would like to find out if in our discussion, is it going to be purely related to climate change? Because some organizations are not into that, but maybe relating the work of the organization to the climate change. Is it what we are to discuss, or we'll just talk
That's
about?
true, Wahab. No, that's an important question. So, yes, the framework could have been used for anything, but we want to use it for climate change in particular, given that we started the community of practice on climate. And we understand, I think that's some question that even if an organization is not directly working in climate, by being part of the community of practice, you have an intention to do some part of it. And with that interest, you can hear from other organizations who already dig deep into it as well. If I can have a thumbs up, you'll be there for 20 minutes in your group. Please, it will be great to have one person who can lead the group as well. I'll jump into it as well. Mercy is also in another group, and that'll be really great. So if I have a thumbs up, we'll start the groups. Perfect. See you in 20 minutes. Welcome back, everyone. I think one or two dropped. Yeah, great. We had a quite an exciting discussion over there. Wahab, sorry that you've been cut off at the last minute, but we can reconvene over here. I'm sure Mercy was also sharing. There was a great discussion there. Um, let's start with generic thoughts. I can curate it, but let's start with generic thoughts. What have you been hearing, especially on, did you discover something which was about your own context you did not think of? Did any of these questions help you discover any of the thoughts which you had not thought of or not curated it earlier? Or if something which somebody else has said in another's context which surprised you or helped you? Yeah, Nisha, go for it.
Yeah, I can share a bit from our group. It was interesting. We kind of talked through, I think we basically only made it through the first three sections of the worksheet, but lenses. But then Mercy actually brought up a good question, which was about the kind of relationship between the positionality and the entry points. And I had been in the leverage points, I guess. So I had been kind of looking at them almost like side by side is the same thing. Our positionality like defines our entry point, but then thinking about the broader system, and we were all feeding back about it. Sometimes the leverage point that we have doesn't actually align with the positionality that we have around, say, a certain issue, such as climate change, or it can be different. I feel like I'm not capturing this well, but so to give an example from our side, say we're teaching content, and that's our kind of positionality is reaching directly to kids and teaching content. And there's a leverage point there too. It's actually different with climate because the ministries of education and government bodies that control curriculum, most of them have not addressed climate change. So in some ways, it's difficult because you don't have a defined thing you're supposed to be teaching there. But in other ways, it's a kind of, you have a little bit more freedom with that entry point because it's outside of the system and it's something that you can play around with. So it was just kind of looking at the relationship between those lenses. It was different for climate than it might have been for other areas like foundational numeracy and literacy and others. And then the other thing was we just saw, even though our organizations are so different, we had a lot of similarities in talking about our positionality and our leverage points. And one of them being that none of us really have a lot of leverage or that position to change things at a systemic level. And we're either working, through schools, through teachers, direct to students.
It's a very interesting point, Nisha, because I think you've mentioned two sides of the same coin. One is because the system is not given too much importance to climate, but it is a universal concept and it is universally affecting all of us and is visible and deep in impact. But because we don't have that funding or that support, there is not much sight as well. So because there's not much sight as well, there is more innovation possible as well within a limited compass of our influence. Very interesting. Very interesting. Curious to hear what else came up.
I can add something as well. I think what's also interesting and came up from listening to other people in our group as well is how the leverage points and positionality are a bit more challenging or could be a bit more challenging within the climate change and education sector because of the number of players you have within who have influence and position and control within that sector. So if we were just looking at improving numeracy, for example, well, then you're just looking at your basic education, you know, your numeracy experts within the ministry, for example. But because this is climate, you're looking at within education, you're looking at people within education, and which could be within any department within the Ministry of Education. But then you're also looking at perhaps the Ministry of Water, and then perhaps the Ministry of Environment or Natural Resources or whatever it might be called. And then perhaps there's something, there could be a ministry or department around emergency response or disaster risk management. And then you want to bring in gender and inclusion, and that often sits within a different ministry, maybe social welfare or something. And sometimes early years or youth, they could also sit under another ministry or department. So there's so many different players with position that you need to be able to influence, contact, control, speak to. That I think that's one of the challenges with this climate issue that we're all trying to deal with, is that it touches on so many, which in one sense is great because you've got all these brilliant minds that can come together to think about how we can best do this most efficiently and effectively, but also can also be a massive barrier because no one takes responsibility and no one's really leading on it. And education thinks that natural resources are leading on it and vice versa. So you end up where you are in Malawi, for example, where we've got these two sets of standard operating procedures that have been done with natural resources in one camp and education in the other camp, one funded by UNESCO and one funded by UNDP, who also don't speak to each other, which needs to come together and then be rolled out, which is where Link is coming in to support them to do that. But it's been it's challenging, and I think that's quite unique to this space that we're working in.
This is a fascinating observation. And so if I can just take up what you've shared, is at a national level and also at an international level, we don't know what does it mean to address climate change. And if we have some understanding, how is it linked to climate change and climate action in education, that makes it a bit more murkier rather than clearer. And I think that connects also at what the conversation was happening in our context was, for example, Joe from Pestulazi was saying, okay, we didn't even have anything around climate. We were doing a bit of, gardening, a bit of some kind of activities. But then, we found part of this community of practice and we were like, okay, let's connect with Earth Warriors. And that is our biggest opportunity right now. Earth Warriors, on the other hand, is saying, okay, so we are not running one school, but we want climate education to become known at an advocacy front, that every child is aware that climate education is not in isolation, but it is a curriculum which can be available. Hope for Youth Uganda is then very different, as saying we are working with youth and we are saying that with the youth, people don't know in communities which plant to plant at what time because weather keeps changing. But when we teach them what is the knowledge creation process and what is the sustainability process we can launch. So even educators are trying to lodge many different distinct interventions. And what is in this kind of a sphere, I want to hear from more, but then I would want to, before we walk away from this space, what kind of a community like GSF can do or should do? What do we have a strength of just being together in the room? Is there any opportunity we have collectively once we've known these patterns? I initially thought we'll bring more funds, but it's not so easy because there are no funders necessarily who are focused on climate and education. So I cannot promise that. But yeah, so I'll pause there. I'm also equally brainstorming with you. But please go ahead, Tabeen, Shrutika. Shrutika, was this workshop as expected as what you were thinking from Simple Education Foundation's perspective?
Yeah, definitely. I think what I was in the room with Nisha, Samantha, and Mercy. So the sharings as well as the questions have been helpful to just really go back to think of it from a more broader it's a combination of, like really going into the nuance of what does a child experience, to, like to really be in interconnection with the ecology around them and from a safeguarding perspective as well. But then for the child to experience that, what is the ecosystem around them needs to do, needs to have. That's where I think a lot of complexity is becoming more and more visible for me, because so much of it is, what I'm understanding is around that agency, right? At an individual level as a child, uh, how do they operate with a sense of agency? And within an education system which is largely, compliance driven, how do you really drive for agency as a value that a child is able to, build and demonstrate as a disposition? And in all of that as well, the whole control and influence. So where are we controlling, where are we influencing, and largely like and what are the ways as well in which you influence, and what is possible to scale as well is something that I'm thinking here, that within the whole climate education, what can really be scaled, because so much of it is um like it's not those tangible things, right? Like you just like, okay, do this training and this will be solved. It's so interconnected. So just really like thinking, that's a question I'm staying with right now, that okay, what happens with the child in a classroom versus what elements of that can really be scaled. I think that's a learning process that as an organization we have to go through and figure that out for ourselves. And yeah, something also around root cause, like climate change is a issue beyond education, right? Education is a way for us, because of the positionality of the organization, education is a way for us to approach it or solve for it. But
Hmm.
climate change is a larger issue of how the world looks at development, what development is, and the direction in which we have been going since, last, I think, a century now, or at least like a couple of decades. So, um, and then what can you really advocate for? And what are those subtle way of influencing? So those are also things that I'm, yeah, getting the opportunity to think about.
Oh, very interesting. I hope some of you or all of you are able to take this worksheet back to your teams and think with your teams, what does it mean for your context? But I also expect or ask that if you can write to me and say, okay, what can this community do? Uh, Ajay, we would like you to convene this, um, so because I can see this is a possibility. It's like, for example, one possibility which I feel happy about right now is many organizations have contacted, Earth Warriors to say, okay, can you implement or partner? And Earth Warriors have been pretty responsive in saying, okay, yes. So that's one opportunity. I know that what Link Education is doing is so fascinating that if you want to think about resilience and other aspects, you can reach out to Link. So, but what can we do beyond that? Do we need to create more conversations? Do we need to bring in different people in this room who can hear us? What can we? I think that's what I'm also thinking. I'll put down a poll. It'll be lovely to have your feedback before you have to drop off, so that we know what's working, what's not. It's a simple four-question, but simultaneously, please voice out your opinion, anything else which is emerging for you right now.